Hi, I'm Anthony from City Backyard Veggies. We are now 3 weeks into September, and now the weather is warm enough for me to look at direct seeding my cucumbers straight into my patch. I like to plant them now because the soil is just warm enough to get them planted out, and I prefer to do it over raising seedlings. I'm going to be planting a couple of batches of cucumbers today, and I'm planting two to three different varieties. But where I am looking at planting for my first round is over here in my main bed. This was the planting where I had my cabbages, and I've worked through most of those at the moment, as you can just see there. I'm going to be planting these next to the capsicums that I had planted about 2 weeks ago. Now I've turned this soil over, broken it down. The soil looks quite good. It's not too bad, it's not too wet, and it's quite friable, but I do want to add a few amendments. What I'm going to be doing first is actually adding a lot of compost. I'm going to add at least 2 barrel loads to this bed, and that's the thing I do before every planting. Try to add organic matter, whether it's chicken manure, cow manure, or in my case today homemade compost. And I'm just going to spread that out and dig that into the top layer of that soil. In addition to that homemade compost, I'm going to add a fair bit of nitrogen to the soil. So I'm going to be adding half a scoop of barley and bone. They do need a lot of nitrogen to produce those fruits and to produce those big vines. So having some nitrogen early in their growing season really helps. And on top of that, I'm going to add half a scoop of dolomite lime. They need calcium to produce their cucumbers, so a little bit of calcium in this mix really helps, but also sweetens the soil a bit. They like a little bit alkaline, and I'm finding that my homemade compost is a little bit acidic because of all the chicken manure in it. Now I have finished preparing the bed, and as you can see, I just mixed in all that amendments and so forth, and straightened out the bed. The soil looks okay. I don't mind planting this, it's actually going to be quite good. Now I want to set out 2 rows, and I'm looking at setting out 2 rows at 60 centimeters apart. That way if I like to crumb just a little bit closer together, because what I do is I end up using a string trellis method to support the cucumbers, and as I get to the top I like to put a bit of a mesh across the top of the trellis system to let the vines sit on top, so they want them to be relatively close. Now as I'm coming to set up my rows, just want to stay away from the capsicums here, so I'm going to try to take it probably 40 to 50 centimeters across, and then set 2 rows, 1, 2 at about 60 centimeters apart. So I'm going to use the back of the rake to form up those rows, and then I'll be ready to plant out the seeds. Now when it comes to direct seeding in my trenches, I prefer to water the trench first and then plant the seeds. I find if I water after, I don't get a really good deep watering, and I run the risk of dislodging the seeds. So what I'm doing is just filling in the trench, give it a really deep soak, and then wait for the water to dissipate, and then I'll plant my seeds. Now while I'm waiting for that water to soak in the trench, I'll show you the first variety I'm going to be planting in this area. The variety I'm going to be growing is called Craig, and this is a greenhouse style Lebanese cucumber. So the munchers, I believe they're called officially. They use it in commercial production, and it produces a lot of fruit. There are other commercial varieties around that I've been researching, including Kasib, but I find that it's just easier for me to get this variety, and for my Lebanese cucumber variety, this is my go-to. And with the trenches, the water has just finished soaking into this trench. Still got a little bit to go in that second trench. What I'll be doing is actually planting my seeds at 30 centimeter spacings, and I'll be looking at putting 2 seeds per location, aiming to get 7 plantings here per row. When it comes to planting the seeds, I'm just going to do a light indentation, just using a stick, just to allow for a spot to plant the seeds, probably at about that 5 centimeters depth. These are my seeds, and when it comes to planting them, I'm looking at planting 2 seeds per hole. Once those seeds are planted in, just a little sprinkling of vermiculite. If you don't have vermiculite, just a little bit of soil, like light soil, just to cover over the planting. Moving across 30 centimeters, again, Dibbling that hole, planted 2 seeds, and just covering it with a little bit of vermiculite. I prefer to direct seed my cucumbers as opposed to growing seedlings. I actually do find over the last 2 or 3 years I did try to start off some new seedlings myself and get an early start on the season, but I did find that every time I did that, the plants really struggled when I planted them out, and it could be for multiple reasons. Maybe because I left them too long in the punnets, maybe I was planting them out just a little bit too early, that it wasn't warm enough. I'm not sure, but every time I did it, they really struggled, and so I would lose a lot of my crop. So this year I'm going back to how I used to plant them back in the past. That is, just direct planting them straight in the bed. I grow a lot of cucumbers in my garden. I'll be planting first crop now and try to plant a new batch every 6 weeks. And my last planting will be in late February. Now, as we get later in the season, especially into autumn, the crop won't be as good, but it's always good to have a little bit of cucumbers coming out of the garden for sandwiches and salads. Just finished planting out that bed, and I got 10 positions planted, 30 centimeters apart in rows 60 centimeters apart. Now I'm not going to water them anymore after this. I may water them at about day 7 if the soil is getting a little bit dry. I expect it needs to actually germinate in that 7 to 10 day period. It actually takes a little bit of time now. It's still early in the season, but when you go later in the season, as it starts really warming up, you'll get cucumbers germinating in 5. But at this early part of the season, 7 to 10 days is probably expected. But besides that, I've got to put a little bit of cut protection on them, make sure that no one digs around, keep them by themselves, try to stop the birds from getting to them as well. And yeah, hopefully I should be able to show you in about 2 weeks time my new cucumber seedlings. Back out in the garden this morning, I'm going to be planting my second round of cucumbers, and I'm decided that I'm going to be planting them in this spot, which was the old Wombok planting. And I've just, similar to what I've done over in my first planting of cucumbers over there, dug over the soil, amended the bed with compost and blood and bone, and I've set up my rows. Now my issue here is at the moment I've got my tomatoes growing over there, and they're going to fill up this whole space in no time. So I've actually taken about 60 centimeters or 70 centimeters away, so that I can give them a little bit of space when I'm coming through to walk to pick those tomatoes. But the cucumber planting, the rows again at that 50-60 centimeter spacings, and just 2 rows straight down the bed. Watered the trench, and now the water's all soaked into the ground, and I'm ready to start planting my seedlings. Now, before I plant them out, I want to show you the varieties I'm going to be planting in these 2 spots, and they're a bit different to the Lebanese style cucumbers I planted over in that first spot. In this front bed, I'm going to be planting 2 different styles of cucumbers compared to the Muncher variety or the Lebanese cucumber varieties I planted in that first spot. In one row, I'm going to be planting a burpless style cucumber called Green Dragon. Got these seeds from Happy Valley Seeds. It's another hybrid. The burpless variety is the long cucumbers with the little spikes. We used to grow these as kids a lot, but then we moved on to the Lebanese style cucumbers, but really excited to give these a go. The other style of cucumber I'm going to grow is the slicing cucumber or slicer variety. The variety I'm actually growing is called Mogwai. Now, I planted this about 2 seasons ago, and it gives you those telegraph style cucumbers that you buy at your local supermarkets, the ones wrapped up in plastic. Not as long, but probably about 20 to 25 centimeters long. So it's actually quite tasty, this one. It's a very sweet cucumber, I found. Not as wet as the Lebanese style cucumbers, but yeah, perfect for sandwiches. Again, as per my first planting, I'm just going to use the back of my trowel to dip a little hole, and with my seeds, these are also treated, which is great. I find personally I like the treated seeds. They don't rot in the ground as your untreated seeds would. And using my vermiculite, just giving it a light covering. In the second row, I'm going to be planting the Mogwai, the slicing cucumber. Just finished planting out that bed. Got myself 9 positions planted out across the row. I've got 2 seeds per hole, and the idea there is that I am happy to let 2 seedlings per position grow out. I don't thin to the weakest to the strongest plant. I do find sometimes that cucumbers do just die for whatever reason, so keeping the 2 growing is fine. But also just a bit of amount of fertilizer I'm adding to this space. 2 vines growing from the same position generally don't really outcompete each other. They do produce quite well. It's going to be a big crop here. 30 centimeters does feel like a lot of space, but by the time I install my string trellis, you're going to need that space to get the vines growing up nicely. Now I'm going to do a few videos later on once I start harvesting these cucumbers, just to show you what each of the different styles looks like and what would work better, what I find it would work better in my context. I always a big believer in the Lebanese muncher style cucumbers, but it's nice to be able to try just a few different varieties and see how it works, and see the most important thing is see which variety the family like to eat. So hopefully in around November I'll be harvesting my first cucumbers, and I'll be able to give you those comparisons there. And before I wrap this video, just out in the garden this morning, Dad's made the call and he's decided that we're going to be harvesting the broad beans. I just showed a video a couple of days ago where the plants were just completely full of beans. Harvested most of them, and thankfully got an absolute massive container load of beans. Now Dad, Mum are going to be in these fresh. We will just shell these, single shell, double shell these, and eat them straight out as a fresh crop rather than cook it. It's a bit of a staple in our family, and to really look forward to spring to eat a lot of broad beans. So look, they were a great crop. I expected a lot more. I had a lot of my best parts of my veggie patch planted out with broad beans, but look, it's great to have this. What I'm going to be doing later in the week is pretty much letting the last of the beans grow out. I'm going to pull them out and start preparing these beds for future growing. Probably put a few tomatoes, extra tomatoes and cucumbers in the spot. Still have a few small ones hanging around, and they will get harvested next week. I'm happy with the crop, happy it's moved on. Just really tall plants. It's just a real struggle when it came to supporting them. These things are close to like 1.6, 1.7 meters tall, and I just can't support the sticks and get blown around, but it's okay. Happy to have harvested this crop. Thank you very much everyone for joining me in this video. I really appreciate all the support. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on a comment in this video or via my socials, TikTok and Instagram. Thank you again. I hope to see you next one.